Derek Langford didn't just drive cars, he wore them asterisk to the outside world. He was the kind of man who made other men feel small without ever saying a word. His suits were handmade in Milan, his watch was older than most people's careers, and his Arvin Valkyrie GT, parked at a perfect angle outside the Lindsley Modern Art Gallery, wasn't just a car, it was the car. Asterisk worth a staggering $2 million. The Valkyrie was a marvel of aerospace-grade carbon fiber, bleeding-edge aerodynamics, and performance so savage it had to be electronically restrained for civilian use. There were only 5 in North America, and Derek owned one of them. He didn't even need to drive it fast. Just owning it made him a god among the mortals of Manhattan. Asterisk and tonight. Under the warm amber streetlights of 74th and Madison, Derek leaned against the polished limestone exterior of the gallery with a glass of champagne in hand, watching people stare at the Valkyrie like it was a spaceship that had landed from a richer, more beautiful planet. Asterisk, he relished the look's admiration, envy, raw curiosity. It fed him. Every whispered, "Who is he?" and every jaw that dropped made him feel untouchable. But then she walked in, not into the gallery. No, she didn't belong there, and she didn't pretend to. She approached the Valkyrie like she was searching for something. She was in her late 20s maybe, but age seemed irrelevant with her. She wore faded jeans, splattered with dried paint, a black t-shirt 2 sizes too large, and old sneakers that looked like they'd walked through a war. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, but streaks of blue and hints of gold showed through under the streetlight. She wasn't homeless, but she was definitely out of place. Asterisk, Derek's lips curled upward in an amused, private smile. She hadn't even looked at the gallery, her eyes were fixed on his car. Asterisk people didn't touch it. That was the unspoken rule. You could take photos, pose beside it, even pretend to own it, but no one laid a finger on the Valkyrie until she did. Her fingertips grazed the front edge of the hood, just under the Arvin logo. It wasn't a casual touch, it was deliberate. Like she was feeling for something invisible to the rest of the world. Asterisk, Derek straightened up, mildly amused, almost hoping she'd trigger the silent alarm system. Instead, he chuckled loud, careless, a sound that echoed through the small crowd nearby. Asterisk, careful, sweetheart, he called out, sipping from his glass, strolling toward her. That paint job costs more than a semester at Yale. Asterisk, the woman didn't look at him. Her fingers moved from the hood toward the side vent, delicately tracing the curvature. Her eyes weren't filled with wonder. They were filled with ... focus, like she was trying to remember a dream. Asterisk, I mean, don't get me wrong, Derek went on, now just a few feet from her. I love a girl who appreciates fine engineering, but try anything stupid and I'll have you explaining your life choices to a lawyer. Still nothing. She circled to the rear quarter panel, her hand hovering slightly before finally making contact with the matte-finished spoiler. Her thumb brushed against a sharp edge, and she paused. Asterisk, I'm serious, Derek said, starting to feel that odd tingle of unease behind his collar. Step away from the car. Now, forget soft hazel with flecks of gold and green, tired but blazing with something like restrained fury, or maybe sadness. He couldn't quite tell. Asterisk, I'm not going to hurt it, she said, her voice calm, low, and clear. I know this one. Asterisk, Derek blinked. You know this one. Asterisk, she nodded once, then pointed to the fender near the front right tire. There's a micro depression just below the paint layer, about the size of a grapeseed. You can't see it, but if you press just right, asterisk, she knelt down before he could stop her. Pressed lightly with 2 fingers, and right there their faintest indentation, no more than 0.5 millimeter, appeared. Asterisk, it had been missed during the final, clear coat process. His jaw tightened. How do you know that? He asked, voice no longer teasing. Asterisk, she stood. I made the model. Not the final body, you'd need a whole factory for that, but the master sculpt, the clay prototype. I did the sculpting on the second Valkyrie design team until I quit. Asterisk, you sculpted this. Asterisk, more than sculpted, she said. I breathed this car. Asterisk, the words weren't boastful, they were hollow, like a truth left too long unsaid. Asterisk, she stepped to the rear again, resting her hand just above the taillight. There's a surface wave in the carbon weave here, barely noticeable, but it never got fixed in time for the show car. Derek was suddenly too aware of the crowd's murmurs fading behind him. I left before the final prototype was approved, she continued. My name's not on the credits. Arvin had deadlines. No time for perfection. Just ... time for market. He felt the champagne glass trembling slightly in his hand. What's your name? He asked. She didn't answer. She took a step back, as if letting go of something heavy. I just wanted to see one in the wild. Once, she said. Before they're all bought up by men who only polish them. It wasn't meant to sting, but it did. He looked at her, hands calloused, rough, speckled with paint and maybe oil. Working hands, not like his ... You really ... made this, he asked, quieter now. I lived it, she said. A silence stretched between them. It wasn't awkward, it was reverent, like something sacred had just been revealed, and no one quite knew how to process it. Then, she reached into her satchel, pulled out a small microfiber cloth. Fingerprint smudge on the driver's side door, her own. Most likely, ... Derek watched, heart pounding for reasons he couldn't name. She moved like a sculptor, like a mother tending to her child, with care so deep it nearly broke him. When she finished, she stepped back once more. I'm done, she said, and turned to leave. Wait, he called after her. But she was, already walking into the Manhattan night, her figure disappearing into a world that had no red carpets for artists who built dreams. He stared after her, a storm of words clashing in his throat. Then he turned to the Valkyrie. It gleamed as it always had. But something had changed. It didn't feel like his anymore, and for the first time in years, Derek Langford, man of machines, money, and masks, stood quietly beside his crown jewel, completely TERRIFYINGLY ... human. Derek Langford stood motionless, one hand still wrapped loosely around the stem of his champagne glass, the other brushing absently against the Valkyrie's hood. But neither the drink nor the car held his attention. Now the woman was gone, vanishing into the slow-moving sea of New York City's nightlife like a ghost, leaving behind only a few smudged fingerprints on his mirror-gloss carbon fiber panel and a storm raging inside his chest that he could neither name nor understand. And as murmurs of the nearby gallery crowd began to rise again, voices returning. No longer the man with a car that demanded attention, but a man who had just been stripped bare in public without a touch. Undressed, not in body, but in belief, for the very idea that he had told himself that he owned the car, that his money made at his had crumbled the moment she touched it. Not with arrogance, not with admiration, but with something infinitely more dangerous. Familiarity. And it wasn't the kind born of privilege or access, but the kind that can only come from creation, from having brought something into being through pain and hours and invisible sacrifice. And now he saw her prints everywhere on the curvature of the fender, in the faint wave of the rear panel, in the flaw near the side vent that he'd always told himself was an illusion of the light. Things he had overlooked because no one had ever pointed them out, and now they screamed at him, louder than engine revs, louder than the murmurs of envy he had once bathed in. And the silence inside him was deafening, because, for the first time, Derek wasn't the man showing something off. He was the man shown, exposed by a stranger whose hands held more truth than all the spec sheets and PR write-ups combined, and he couldn't stop replaying her voice. Soft, but razor-sharp. I lived it. She'd said not, I built it, or I worked on it, but lived it tanned. Those words sank into his bones like winter chill. Because hadn't he always told himself that he lived for cars? He was the man who knew beauty when he saw it. He was the connoisseur of motion and metal, but now, in the shadow of her fingerprints. And that thought followed him home, where the Valkyrie rested in its private glass garage like a trophy in a museum that no longer felt like his. And long after the city went to sleep, Derek sat in his leather chair by the window, staring at the motionless car while the silence grew thicker around him. Not a dramatic silence, but the slow, suffocating kind, the kind that fills a room when you know you've missed something precious and irreversible. And he wondered what dreams she buried when she walked away from Arvin Dynamics. What pieces of herself were molded into that car's bodywork while the men in suits rushed deadlines and silenced doubt, and he imagined her hands, those rough, stained, brilliant hands, holding a sculpting blade at 3 a.m., eyes tired but heart locked in, shaving millimeters from foam, coaxing shape from chaos, not for applause, but for truth. And he realized something he hadn't let himself consider in years. He couldn't do that. He had no idea how to bring a machine like that to life. He could drive it, yes, and speak about it with rehearsed precision, but build it, feel it. No, that power belonged to someone else. And it humbled him more deeply than any insult ever could, because it meant that his greatest possession, the icon he thought made him important, had always belonged more to her than to him. And as that truth settled inside him, he felt something shift, not in the world, but in himself, and that shift hurt, not because it shattered his pride, but because it revealed a hunger he didn't know he had, the desire to understand, not just collect, not just own, but to truly know the soul of something. And now he felt small, not in shame, but in honesty, in the way a child does when he finally sees how vast the world is and how little he's explored. And that night, without telling anyone, he searched for her, not her name. But her marquee pulled up every engineering profile from Arvin's early Valkyrie prototype team, every sketch, every internal memo he could find. And he began to recognize echoes of her design notations written in looping script flagged. Corrections on composite layering, alternative flow paths scribbled in red on blueprints that had been scanned and buried in archives. And, as the hours passed, he built a mental map of her footprints inside the machine he thought he knew. And it was like following breadcrumbs through a forest he never knew existed. Until suddenly, the Valkyrie was no longer a car to him. It was a story, and it wasn't his, it was hers. And somewhere in the quiet middle of that night, he walked back to the garage, barefoot, half-dressed, the air chilled and sterile. And he sat down on the cold concrete floor beside the Carnot to admire it, not to check the specs, but to listen, as if the silence could finally speak back. And when he looked at the panel she had touched, he could still see the faint outline of her hand, not literally, but in memory, burned there by emotion more than evidence. And he reached up and placed his own hand beside it, fingers splayed, almost in reverence. And something in his throat caught, something deep and jagged, and though no sound came, tears rose anyway, not in a torrent, but in quiet, measured defeat. And that was when he realized she had done something to him that no one ever had. She had rewritten him, without permission, without praise, without even telling him her name. And somehow that made it more powerful, because it wasn't about her, and it wasn't about him. It was about the truth, the raw, beautiful truth that people like her bled into the bones of greatness, while people like him stood in the light and took the credit. And though he could buy another car, and another gallery, and another tailored suit, he could never again feel untouched by that knowledge, because from that moment on, no matter how many awards he won, or hands he shook, or shows he hosted, part of him would always sit on that garage floor, silent, aching, remembering the woman who made him laugh, and then made him cry, not with cruelty, not with pity, but with honesty, a kind so pure it stripped him down to what was real. And in that truth, he was no longer a collector, no longer a rich man showing off, no longer untouchable, but simply a human being holding the pieces of someone else's greatness. Finally understanding how heavy they really were,